Hello everyone and welcome to this another episode of 3D prototyping in Unity. My name is Kasanas. In the last episode we took on audio, which is great because now we've got music, we've got indication when the player gets hurt, we've got indication when the player picks stuff up, we've got fire crackling, we got a bunch of different stuff, which is great. And hopefully you guys will go in and as we move forward, fill in your audio as necessary. Okay. In today's episode, what I'd like to take a look at is building a triggered object. So kind of like we did with the pickup, kind of like that. But I'd rather have something that activates upon entry, something like a door, a garage door, or an elevator, something like that. And we're going to take a look at one or two of those objects over the next few days. All right, so let's get started. Okay, everyone. Like I said in today's episode, I'd like to take a look at creating a triggered object. In this case, in this episode, I'd like to create a garage door. And let's just take a look at the asset I've already created in order to handle our garage door. I'm not going to go over the creation of this additional platform. You guys should know how to do this. We've already talked about it in an earlier episode, creating platforms. Basically, all I did, I'll just go over it very, very briefly. I won't actually discuss the creation of it. I basically went into a 3D package and built my model. All right, I textured it, I did everything in the 3D package, and then I imported it exactly like I did my first platform. Afterwards, let me just find it, here it is. Afterwards, what I did is I went through and I added in the appropriate colliders to prevent my character from falling through the actual asset. All right, you guys know how to do that as well. Just follow the same concept we did with building our initial platform. All right, so I went in and I added appropriate platforms here. Appropriate colliders. I added a collider on this side, a collider over here. I added a collider along the top. I added a collider along here, I also have a couple of holes in here, like a couple of hallways that the character could run inside. We'll take a look at that in a second. So I added in a couple of colliders to prevent the character from going deep inside. And lastly, I added a collider to this bottom section as well. If we take a look at the actual colliders themselves, here's one right here. Remember, guys, to add in your physics material and to change the layers to ground. That way your character will be able to animate properly as they enter onto this new platform. All right, so if I hit play right now and I run over there, all right, you'll see, boom, I'm bouncing the same way. If I jump up in the air, I animate the same way. I'm actually able to jump. Inside, right here is where I'd like to actually create a garage door. And what I want to do is create the garage door that will prevent my character from going back in the opposite direction. The door is going to shut. And we'll set it up in code so you can either open it from either side if you want to. In my case, I'm going to set it up so the door shuts, and then the character is forced to stay within the scary garage. Oops, I'm pushing the wrong button. Within the scary garage itself. All right. In a future episode, I would think possibly the next one, what we'll do, there's a section here where the character can fall off, and like I said, they can run here, but they can't go too far in. They're prevented from doing so by those colliders I added. I think in the next episode, we'll build ourselves an elevator to get us back up to the top. All right? And this will show you guys how you could set up objects to be triggered by the player and to kind of move them from one section to the other and prevent them from going back. All right? It's more about gameplay at this point in time than it is about anything else, really. All right? So creating these objects are not difficult. We're going to use a lot of the techniques we've already done before. We're going to go through and create a number of different things. Materials. Well, let's do it right now. We'll create a material right now. I'm going to say create. I'm going to say in brand new material. Bam. And we'll call this garage door material for a fancy name. I'm going to use a standard asset. The only thing I'm going to change really is the albedo, and I'm going to find... I'm just going to use the same stuff I used on my tank traps, which is this rusted plane. What I want to do, I'm going to turn on the smoothness too. You guys don't have to do this. I'm really making like a kind of a clay-like objects here. You guys can make yours look however you want. I'm not going for realism. I'm going for more of a clay-like look. So we're going to be using it. I've already talked about how to build objects in a 3D package, or I've at least talked about it. I haven't shown you how to do it, but how to model anyway. Go through, and we've been building our stuff in a 3D package. In this episode, I want to build things, other than this, of course. I want to actually show you that you can build things in Unity itself. You don't require a 3D package. You can go through and you could use primitive objects to go through and build a game. So in this case here, I'm going to use simply primitive objects in building this entire asset. Okay, in building the entire garage door, I'm only going to use primitive assets that I create right here in Unity. I will, of course, decorate them with two different materials. The first one is going to be the garage door itself, and the second material, I'm going to say create, and I'm going to create a second material, and we will call this material garage gear. And I'm going to go through and find, it's not an opaque, it's going to be a cutout, and I'm going to make it from a gear texture that I have right here. All right, those are the two materials I'm going to be using. And once again, you can turn down the smoothness, etc. if you want to. I'll turn it down a bit. I'm going to use those two materials to actually build something. I'm going to have a garage door that goes up and down right here, and a gear that spins whenever the garage door moves. All right, we're going to keep it really, really simple. So to create this object, I'm just going to go to game object. Well, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a holder object. I don't need this open right now. I don't need you open it right now either. I'm going to say create, and I'm going to say create empty. And let me just put this, reset it for now, and drag it back where we need it. Where is it? Here it is. Why am I grabbing that wrong thing every single time? There. All right, let's drag this over. And I'm just going to put it right here for now. And let's call this envelope itself. This is going to be the envelope that I actually store all of my assets in. Let's call this, let's just call this garage door. Garage door. And that's perfectly fine. And we'll leave it right there for now. We're going to end up zeroing this out later on and building this a little better. But for now, that's fine. So the garage door, I'm going to add to that. I'm going to add a game object right now, a 3D object, a cube. And let's zero you out too. Reset and drag it over. Where is it? Drag it over. Zoom. Okay, so this is basically a primitive. It's a Unity primitive. It's a cube. And I'm going to create out of this primitive a door. So obviously I have to thin it out. I don't want it so thick in the X. Let's make it 0.2. That's probably fine. In the Y, let's make it, is 4 too big? It's a little too big. Let's make it 3.5, 3.6. Let's see if that's good. You'll notice that my garage door has a pivot point in the middle. And let's make it 3.5. Is that too big still? And ultimately, that's going to affect the animation. Sadly, it's going to affect the animation. There are ways of getting around it, of moving. There are ways of moving the pivot point. Now, you can't actually physically change the pivot point of any object you bring into Unity currently. You can, however, add some additional items to make the pivot point change. It's based on the volume of the object you're actually creating. I'm not going to bother doing that with this object. I'm going to just leave the pivot point where it is and animate around it. And the Z, let's make the Z 5. Let's see if that's good. Let's move it here. All I'm trying to do really is make an object that's going to block my character. All right. And that probably is fine. That's probably fine. Why does this look like it's on an angle? That is weird. Could be speed perspective. All right, I'm not going to worry about it. The Z is perfectly fine. That's probably fine for now. I'll leave it because I don't really care. I am going to go through and change my default material from my default material to the garage door material that we created right here. All right, there we go. So that's my garage door. Super sexy. You guys can go and make this more complicated if you want to. All I'm trying to show you is that it is possible to create something using the primitives only. All right, the primitives in Unity only. Now, if we take a look, this primitive object that I created came in with a transform node, which we've already manipulated. Great. Our cube mesh filter, which is showing it as a cube. Our box collider, and I'm going to leave the box collider on there. The box collider is what's going to prevent our character from going through this object at will, right? The box collider is there, the character can't go through it. So when the door shuts like it is right now, the character is going to be stuck here. So that's perfect. All right, let's create a second object. Let's create another game object and our 3D cube. And there it is right there. Let's move it into position somewhere around here. And this is going to be my gear. Okay, so I'm going to right away skinny this sucker out. It's going to be thin in the X. Let's make it, no, sorry, it's going to be skinny in the Z. Let's make it 0.1. Is that too skinny? That's probably perfectly fine. And let's make this 2 and 2. So basically, all I'm doing is creating another cube that is going to look like a gear by changing out the default material. Boop, into our gear material that I made. Gear material should be right around here. Gear material, garage gear, great. All right, and that's what it's going to look like, okay? And I'm just going to put it up in position, I don't know, somewhere up here. Basically, all I want to happen is I want this object to spin whenever the actual garage door opens. That's the only purpose of it, to add a little bit of animation. That's all, nothing else. All right, and everything here, let's rename this properly. First of all, let's call this thing here the gear. And let's call this first cube the door. All right, and I'm going to drag door into my garage door, and I'm going to drag gear into my garage door, creating one entire aspect. So right now we've got ourselves our entire object located inside of garage door. All right, perfect. Okay, so to both these objects now we have to add our animation in. We want the garage door to be able to open, and we want the gear, or close, and we want the gear to spin every time that the actual garage door moves. So let's start off with our actual gear. Oh, I missed selecting it. Let's go down here and select our actual gear. So right now we don't currently have any animation on here, and we don't have an actual animator. So let's go in and add our window and make sure that our animator is open. Animator right there. And I'll leave it up here in the scene. That's perfectly fine. And I'm going to also add open my window, my animation window. Animation. All right, I'm just going to drag it and drop it right in here for now. Not in there. I want it right in here. All right, right in there for now. And let's make this a little bigger so we can see it. So basically, I want to create two different clips for my actual gear. I want to have an idle state, which is just sitting there. It's going to have a single frame of it just sitting there. So I'm going to say right away, create, bam, and it's going to ask me, what do I want to create? I want to create a gear idle animation. Now, of course, I should have actually switched my project over. I just created that in the wrong location. I'm going to drag this stuff here, select, and I'm going to drag this into my actual animation folder. All right, that's where I want it to be. So there's my gear idle. I'm going to turn off my actual recording right now. Let's go back to our animation window and turn off our recording. Basically, all I want to do for my gear idle, all I want to do is I want to add a property. I'm going to add a transform to the transform itself, and I'm going to add rotation plus. All right, and it doesn't matter how long this is. Leaving it as 1 second is perfectly fine. I'm not actually going to change anything. So right now, if I scroll through this, nothing moves in there. And that's my idle state. I don't want it to move at all. If you want to add some quiver or something like that in, be my guest. Go ahead. That's perfectly fine. All right. Let's go back to our project, select my actual gear idle right now, and I can leave this on loop if I want to. Really, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to leave it on loop. That's perfectly fine. Let's turn off this recording. Now, I want to add a second animation, all right? The animation whenever this object is turning. Okay, simple. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to, right next to this little tiny where it says gear idle, there's a little tiny arrow up and down. Click on that and say create new clip. This is going to create a brand new animation. This one's going to be called gear rotating. Doesn't matter what you guys call it. Just make sure you call it something that you can identify later on. All right, gear rotating. And once again, I'm going to go through and I'm going to add a property. In this case, once again, it's going to be a transform, and all I want is my rotation. Okay, and I think I'm going to move these out. I don't need them at 1 second. I need them at, let's say, make it maybe 4 seconds. Let's give it a good deal of time. You can make this longer or shorter. I'm going to give it 4 seconds to complete a maybe 720 degree rotation. I think so. 720 degree rotation. So basically all I want is at 4 seconds, I want this object to have rotated in this axis, so in the Z. I want it to rotate 720 minus 720. All right, and that's going to put it right back to its zeroed position. So all I'm going to have it do is go in here and come out after it's finished rotating. That's my plan, okay? So stop this for now, stop my recording, stretch this out so we can see it. And when we take a look at our actual rotation, if I just hit play for a second here, you can see my gear itself is rotating through. All right, it's rotating through. And that's all I want it to do. That's perfectly fine. So that's the animation required for the actual gear. Now let's add the same kind of animation to the door. The door itself is going to have two animation states. Now, before, actually when I created the gear, if we take a look over here, as soon as I actually hit create new animation, it automatically added for me the animator, and it automatically created for me both the animation itself as well as the, oh, where'd the other one go? Gear idle is here. The other one go into assets? Where did it go? Interesting. I'll have to go and find it. It did not go where I thought it would go. I have no idea where, and I'll have to go look for it in a second. So we've got ourselves gear right here, which was automatically created, and gear itself was created. The actual animation controller was created when we built the new object. All right, so I'm going to go to door with my animation set right here, and I'm going to go to animation, and I'm going to say create. And when I do, once again, it's creating my brand new animation. It actually went into materials, and I don't know why. That's very odd. I'm going to move this thing here. Can I move it right now? Assets, into assets, and animation. That is odd. It should have automatically defaulted to where I was. So anyway, we're going to come in here. We're going to add a door open. All right. And that's going to be our door opening animation. Okay. And I'm just going to go over to my project right now, my materials, and move this into my animation. Bam. All right, so my door open, there it is. Let's go into the animation itself, and I'm going to add a property. Okay, this is going to be a transform both my position as well as my add a property, my rotation. Okay, so basically what I want to happen is after a certain amount of time, let's say I decide once again 4 seconds. I don't know if that's the appropriate amount of time. I'm going to move all this stuff all the way down. Go down here all the way to 4 seconds, drag it. 4 seconds is probably too long. Let's do it after 2 seconds. All right. So maybe we'll do our clip, our rotation clip at half the speed. 2 seconds is probably fine. At 2 seconds, what I want to happen is I want to have the door rotated in this way. All right, it's gonna be rotated like this. And like I said, there is an issue because I'm pivoting around the center point, and I don't like that. So minus 90. Hopefully it was minus 90. And I'm going to move it up and back. All right, so this is where I want my door to end up being. All right, so that's good. So let's see how that works. Now that doesn't look super sexy, does it? See how it's going like, kind of like that. I don't love that. It's not super sexy. So I'm going to have it go up very quickly. I'm going to have it actually go up very fast right here. I'm going to have this thing move up, and I'm going to have it already rotating almost, so it kind of slides into position like this. All right, and I just chose a random location for that. Now if I play through this animation itself, let's take a look how that looks. Let's hit play, play. All right, and it kind of slides in. I don't love it. It goes up too high. I probably need another keyframe somewhere. See how it goes up and over. I can probably also take a look at the curves themselves to make sure it's not curving like that, which I don't love. Let me just right click and say flat. So it comes in flat, and I'm going to free smooth this one here, free smooth, bring it in a little bit like that. All right, and I think we're going to have to do the same thing with this thing here. I want this to go flat, both of these. So flat and flat. All right, let's take a look how that looks. Still not awesome. I will go through and adjust that animation a little bit later on to make sure that it is moving the way I like. All right, it's fine for now, however, because that's really all I wanted to do. Now, I have to add in a second animation. Let's go back to our animation dope sheet here. I'm going to add in a second animation. So once again, I'm going to click on this little arrow. I'm going to say create brand new clip. This time it's going the right place, and I'm going to call this one here door close. All right, and this one here I want to start off in the up position. So I have to go through and I have to copy those frames that I had from before. If I go to the door open and I take a look at what's going on here at 2 seconds. All right, I can see that I'm at position 007, 3.42, and minus 8.6. I have to try to remember that now. 0.07, 3.42, and minus 8.6. minus 0.86 with a rotation of minus 90. All right, that is going to be my starting position for the door close. Door close right here. I'm going to go through, add a property. I'm going to add a transform. Once again, transform, position, and transform, add property, transform, rotation. Bam. I'm going to start these things off at, like I said, if I can remember them, what was it? It was decimal 07, I hope. I should have wrote them down. 3.42, I think. It had a negative 90, and I think that's correct. I think that's probably correct right there. Great. I'm going to go through and have it slam down after 2 seconds. I'm just going to drag this over just like I did last time. Let's have it take 2 seconds once again. 2 seconds, and I want to go to 0. That is perfect. I can shut this down. Let's just take a look at it now. We'll just play it right here. Play. And that's shutting a little bit too slow. So once again, I'm going to go in. I'm going to add a keyframe right off the bat. Let's add it somewhere right around here again. And I want to actually, you know what I'm going to do? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go through, and I'm going to have it go down this quickly. I'm going to set keys right here. Set a key. I'm going to drag these keys all the way over to 0.4. All right. So now when I hit play, let's see how that looks. It should go quickly, and it goes a little faster and settles in. So it's got a nice slow in. It's a little bit too slow. I'll probably go through and adjust both of these because I don't love it. But I'll go through and adjust that later on. It's really not that important as far as what we're doing. I just want to make sure that we are getting this to work properly. And I'm going to move this up a little bit like that. Like that. All right, that's fine. Okay, so I'm going to go through and adjust this later on to make myself a little sexier animation. You guys should take your time and build your animation appropriately. All right, that door is just supposed to slam in the character's way to make sure that they can't get out. All right, you could go through and build a fancier door if you want to. Okay, great. Now, with that said, I need a couple of other things, and that's it. I'm going to need code, first of all, to make sure that the door operates appropriately, and I'm going to need a trigger. So the trigger is really, really easy. You guys have done this a billion times before already. In Garage Door, what I'm going to do is go back to my actual project now, because I don't need the animation anymore. In my Garage Door, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a component to this actual Garage Door. Add component. I'm going to add a physics, and I'm going to add a, you can add any kind of collider you want. I'm going to simply add a box collider. And I'm going to, there it is right there. I'm going to make it taller. Well, first of all, I'm going to move it up so I can see it. That's obviously too big. I'm going to make it much smaller, make it 3. I'm going to move it up so I can see it appropriately. Probably right about there. And I want it to be at about 4 floor height. And I'm going to make it a little bit wider in the Z as well. Let's move it over in the Z, just to give it an area where the character can run in. That's all this is going to be. It is going to be a trigger. All right. This is basically the location, and I can move it around for each of these objects. It's going to be the location where the character walks through in order to set off the trigger and actually start the door closing. Okay. One more thing I want to do in the animation itself. If I take a look at the animation for the door close, it's not going to be a loop. And the door open is not going to be a loop, meaning it's going to play once and it's going to stop and hold that position. Okay? All right, guys. So now what we have to add is the code. And again, there's not very much code. Don't worry, there's not a whole lot of code to add. So we are going to add we should add one more thing actually. In the door itself, let's go through and we might as well add our audio right now. Add component, let's add our audio source right now, our audio source, and let's find our clip. Did I bring something? Elevator operating. Did I bring? There's Garage Door. All right, great. So I'm going to add the audio clip in there right away. And we are not going to have it play on awake. Okay, so with that said, we do have to add in some code now to allow this thing to operate appropriately. Okay, let's go to our Garage Door and let's add a component. And we're going to add in here a brand new script. And let's call this thing here, let's call it Garage Door Controller. All right, good name. Add and create. All right, and let's open it up. Now, it's not going to be a difficult script. It should be relatively easy, actually. We're going to need a handful of public Come on, open up. We're going to need a handful. What are all you guys doing? Open, close, close, close. Garage door. All right, we're going to need a couple of public functions. Now, or a couple of public variables. First of all, I want to set this object up so it can either be opened or closed, and I want it to be set up so that you can either only open it from one side or only close it from one side. Like you can only activate it once, or you can reset it. All right, so let's start off with a public. Let's make this bigger first of all. I know you guys want it big. Zoom in. View, zoom in. View, zoom in. All right, let's start off with a public bool that we're going to call resetable. All right, so this is going to allow us to reset this door into whatever state it started off in. So it'll allow it to open and close. All right, the next thing I'm going to add is a public game object. We need a link to the actual door itself, so let's call it door. And a public game object and gear. So we've got a reference to both the door itself and the gear itself. And let's public bool. Let's start off with something so we know whether or not this is going to start open or closed, because it's got two states, right? You can either have this thing open or closed to begin with. All right, so that's going to allow the designer, the creator, to decide whether or not this is starting off open or closed. Now, first of all, we're going to have to know if it's a state where we can't open it or close it again. We're going to want to know if this is the first time the character has actually walked into the trigger. So let's make a bool called first trigger. And we'll set it immediately to false. That means that they have not actually set it off yet. So if we have it set up so it can only be opened once, then we'll set first trigger to be true. And if resettable is not true, then we can't open it again. All right, let's start off our object in the open state. So bool, we'll call it open, and we'll start it off as true. So that means anytime we build one of these things here, it's going to start off in the open state, which is perfectly fine, because if we take a look at the animator, for the actual door again, we haven't set this up yet, but our door is going to start off in the open state. All right, so we're going to come back and set these things up in a second. Let's go back to our actual code. Okay, now, so that's perfectly fine. It'll start off in the open state, and we need a couple of references to the animator so we can trigger the animators off. So let's animator, and this is going to be called this is going to be the door anim. All right, that'll allow us to trigger the door, and we'll need another animator, and allow us to trigger the gear, so gear anim. Okay, and we'll obviously need the audio source, audio source, bam, and we'll call it door audio. I'm terrible at names. Okay, that's probably perfectly fine as far as our first declarations are concerned. So first thing we want to do in the start function, let's go in and add ourselves let's find our references. So we want to find the door anim, and that's going to be equal to our door first of all, and because we're going to go to the game object of the door, and we're going to get component, and we're going to find the animator. All right. Oops. Bam, 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 bam. All right, and let's get our gear anim as well. Might as well while we're here. It's going to be our gear dot get component. Same line exactly. Get component, and it's going to be our animator. All right, so that'll give us a reference to both of our animators. Great. The next thing we should find is our audio, and the audio source we actually put on the door component again. So it's going to be equal to our door dot get component, and this time we're looking for our audio source, and that way we can trigger it as we need. All right, so that's good. Now, there's a couple things that we want to consider here. If we're not actually starting in the open state, if our door is starting off in the closed state, then we have to run our closed animation. So first thing we should probably do is go through and set up our actual animation states for each of these individual things. So let's go back to our game for a minute. Let's move this out of the way. And what we're going to do is obviously we want to be able to go from the door closed to the door open, and we want to be able to go from the door closed to the door open, and vice versa. Now, we want to give it a reason why we can. And what we're going to add is we're going to add a simple parameter. We're only going to have one trigger, so whenever we do trigger, it'll go in the opposite direction. All right, that's all we're going to have. So parameters, add a trigger, and let's just call this door trigger for that purpose. Door trigger, all right? It's an actual trigger, and we just want to set it up so each time you trigger one of these things, we're going to add into our list here, the door trigger. When you trigger one, it's going to go into the other one, okay? Drag it. I'm not even going to really worry about any kind of any kind of blending at all. There's no exit time. Let's take that off. The same thing is true this way here. No exit time. I'm going to drag this down here, just shrink it a bit. And once again, plus door trigger, so door trigger. All that happens each time the door triggers is we're going to go in the opposite direction. Perfect. All right, let's go back to our code. Back to our code. And what we want to do in our code now is we have to first of all decide if it's actually starting off open. So if it's not start open, so start open, that's what I called it, right? Open. All right, if not start open, yes. If not start open, then what we want to do is we actually want to go through and set our open equal to false. Equals false. Oh, God, I can't even spell anything today. False. All right, so our open state is false. All right, we've already set this Boolean to false. We want to actually door anim equal to, or sorry, door anim. And we want to set our trigger. That's all. Set trigger. All right. And what trigger do we want to set? We want to set our door trigger. All right. And we probably want to go through and do the gear and play the audio as well. This is really just setting everything up. It's really just setting everything up. But we probably want to go through and do our well, we'll take a look at that in a second. We'll do our audio though. We'll do our door audio, and we are going to play the audio source that we've set up. Play. All right, so I'm just going to play the audio. All right, I'm going to file save that for now. Okay, and let's close off our if statement. Boom. All right, and I think that's all we really have to do. So basically now when we start off, we find our components, we get everything going. If our door is not actually in the open state to start off with, then we close the door. Okay, that's great. Now, there's only one other thing we need. We don't even need our update because we're not going to do anything in the update. You can remove it if you want to. We do need our void on trigger enter. All right, our void on trigger enter, and we are taking a collider that we'll simply call other, which is pretty standard, and we will put our braces in automatically. Bam. Now, basically, all we want to check is if it's our player. All right, so if it's our player, what am I doing? If other dot tag equals quotations player. All right. If it's our player, let me go down here and hit a bunch of returns to move this up into the center of the screen for you guys. If it's actually our player and it's not first trigger, so not first trigger. So we want to make sure that we're checking out to we're finding out when our first trigger is actually occurring. Not first trigger. That is what I called it, right? Not first trigger, yes, not first trigger. So as long as it's not our first trigger, then we want to go in here and we want to open this door. So first thing, if it is resettable, then we don't really care. All right, we don't really care. If it's not resettable though, then we want to make sure that first trigger gets set and the player can't open this up anymore. So if not resettable, if it's not resettable, then what we want to do is we want to set our first trigger to true. All right, that means the character's gone through once. All right, and that's it. So now we can't, if we set our first trigger to true, it cannot come back inside of here. Okay, great. Now, otherwise, or even so, we want to say door, and we actually want to get our door anim going, right? We want to have this door open or closed. Dot set trigger. Set trigger. Oh. Trigger. And it's quotations, door trigger. Quotations. All right, great. So we actually want to get our door moving. We want to set our open to the opposite of what it was before. So open is equal to not open. All right, so if it was closed, now open. If it was open, it's now closed. We want to get our gear going. So our gear, now, once again, what we have to do is decide how our gear is working. So let me just move this out of the way for a second. And let's find our gear. Bam. So right now, we're staying in the gear idle state, and obviously we want to go to the gear rotating state whenever we require to. The gear rotating state is, sorry, both of these should not be loopable, or we can leave it loopable, I guess. We want to change gear rotating to not loopable though, because I don't want to go through more than once. Animation, gear rotating, and we'll turn off loopable. You can leave it on. I don't think it really matters. Now, once again, what we want to do is we want to set it up so that this object will automatically go in from the idle to the rotating and then back again. So make transition, bam, all the way up like this, and bam, all the way back again. All right. We are going to need a parameter plus, and we're going to add a trigger once again, and we'll just call it gear rotating, or gear, yeah, rotating. It doesn't matter what you call it. Gear rotating. All right. We want it to go from, oh, yeah, it's compile errors. Don't worry, that's just over here. That's just our code. We want to go from gear idle to gear rotating every time that trigger is actually set. All right. We don't want it to have an exit time. Okay, so let's move this down like this and shrink it. All right, so it's going to kick into gear rotating whenever we ask to, whenever we set this thing here. Now, the other direction, what we're going to do is we're going to leave the has exit time. So it's automatically going to reset itself, and hopefully it'll take the 4 seconds. We probably want to run gear rotating a little bit faster because it's not going to go through the entire thing. But we'll take a look at doing that in a second. All right, so that's perfectly fine. Let's go back to our code because this episode is getting very long. I didn't think it would be so long, but it is. Let's go back to our code. Okay, so now we're going to go to our gear anim dot set trigger, same way we did before, and we're going to set our gear rotating trigger. All right, and that will actually get our gear rotating. Now, the last thing we have to do, obviously, is play our audio because we want to make noise. Door audio dot play. All right, let's save that. File save. Great, let's move it out of the way. And let's make sure, let's go to our console and make sure there's no errors. Let's see, clear. There are a couple, void cannot be used in the console. I'll have to go through and check and see exactly what I'm missing. All right, guys, I will be right back. Okay, sorry, guys, I was missing one little thing here. Bam, I forgot to close off my if statement. File save you again, file save. Let's check it now. Please be gone. There we go. All right, great. So there's let's take a look at how this works now. Right now, if we actually go into our game, into our scene, our object is currently closed. All right, let's set it so it's open to begin with. Let's turn off maximize on play and watch what happens. As soon as I hit play, watch, well, nothing's going to happen first of all because I have to set up my garage door. I'm going to grab my door. I'm going to drag it into door. I'm going to grab my gear. And I'm going to drag it into gear, and I'm going to say start open. All right, when I hit play, watch what happens. Play. It automatically goes up, which is great. All right, I did forget to set my actual audio in my door. So let's stop that for a second. Oh, no, I did set it. I just didn't hear it. I'll have to turn it up later on. No problem. So it started off open. That's great. Now, let's get our character running over there. I just wanted you to see that happening. Let's get our character running over there. Let's maximize on play again. Hit play. Let's get our character running over there. All right, jump you. And when we run inside, bam, it closes. All right, that's what we want to happen. Our character now is stuck. He can't get out. Face first into this. He can't get out. And now he's forced to deal with whatever is going on here. I probably want to thin this out so we can't see the edges a little bit. I'm going to do that in a second. But that is basically how we want this to work. If our door is actually resettable, so let me do resettable here. I'm going to say start open and resettable, and I hit play. Jump. Jump. Going inside. Whoa, it's closing. Oh no, oh no. And am I stuck in here forever? I don't know. No, I'm not. Okay. So, you can set up the door to operate in one of two ways. And this one here will keep operating now when I run back. That's what the door actually does. Awesome. And that's all I'm going to show you today. Last thing, one last thing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my project itself. I'm going to go to my prefabs, and I'm going to drag my garage door into my prefabs so I can use it whenever I want. All right, guys, I hope you liked that episode. It was quite lengthy, I think. And I'm sorry. I know I promised I'd keep these down to about 10 or 15 minutes, and I've been doing terrible at it. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, let me know with a thumbs up. If you didn't, a thumbs down is perfectly fine. I took a little break here. I took about a week and a half making these videos. I took about a week and a half break here, and I'm a little bit rusty, so I'm really sorry if they didn't go so well. We just moved houses, actually, and it took quite an effort, took quite a lot out of me. Didn't get a chance to make any videos. So I'm catching back up now, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. Let me know down below in the comments, all right? Thumbs up, thumbs down, comments down below, and if you haven't done so, please take a few seconds to subscribe. Have yourselves a wonderful day, everyone.